Hey, today we have a Cassyva Soul Reaper creep aggro deck that's going to try to put down some creep and power up the Juggernaut and do some damage with Darkspine Elemental and just be a more aggressive type of Cassyva deck than we will normally see. Um, so first off, we just have the two ones for one, the Bloodtail Alchemist, which has the ping, and the Abyssal Crawl, which is going to spread some Shadow Creep. Now the Shadow Creep is going to be a little bit useful for controlling your opponent's movement and maybe doing a little incidental damage, but mostly it's going to be powering up your Juggernaut. So it's just kind of a slow grow mechanic that happens before you play the Juggernaut. So it's kind of interesting. Grasp of Agony is just really good for clearing crowds, and it kind of allows you to hit bigger creatures. If you throw a Grasp of Agony and then kill on a small creature minion and then kill that, you can tick down the larger minions without having to attack them directly a lot of the time. So that's good, and it can do damage to the enemy general as well, and sometimes you can just get really huge board clears if your opponent doesn't play around these, especially with Demonic Lore, where you can place the enemy minions where you want it, put a Grasp of Agony, then kill it, and then do 3 AoE damage. Sphere of Darkness just places a Shadow Creep, turns a space into Shadow Creep and draws a card. It's just a cycle. It basically pings for 1 or 2 if you have the Darkspine Elemental. You can use this to deny mana tiles because it will remove the mana tile. You're usually just using this to ping and cycle. It doesn't you can't use it to ping more than once on the same space, which is limiting. But drawing a card, this is just a very good card. It's very easy to fit in your curve most of the time, and especially with Darkspine Elemental and Abyssal Juggernaut, you get extra value. Void Pulse is, I think, one of the most underrated cards right now because Reaver's so strong and aggro decks are very, very strong. And this is a 5-point life swing. Anytime you see a Phoenix Fire to your face, and you just think that for 1 mana you could deal 2 damage to the enemy general and restore 3 health, you get, by far the winning end of that trade. So, and it hits weapons, artifacts. It ticks down artifacts, combined with the creep squares and the alchemist and just some incidental damage. You'll be able to remove artifacts before they get too crazy. So I think this is a very good card, and it's one of the main reasons I want to try an aggro deck with Abyssian right now. Demonic Lure is how you're going to beat taunts or just kind of high threat minions, and it's used to set up your Grasp of Agonies. It's just very good. You can also use it to kill a 2-3 early if that's kind of how your hand plays out, but usually you want to use it for the taunts later. Usually you should be winning the board early just with your superior early drops. You just have more of them and of higher value. But if you need to kill a high value 2-drop like a lion, for instance, and deny them a mana tile, that can be effective too. Darkspine Elemental's a weird card, but it's a 1-4 for 2, which isn't a great stat line usually, but your Shadow Creep does double damage, so it will do 2 damage most of the time, although they do stack, I believe. I'm pretty sure, to do 4. And 8. Yeah. So usually you'll just use it for 2. It means your Sphere will ping for 2. It just means your Shadow Nova will be a 2 damage AoE. It's a pretty effective card. It's not great aggro, but you can buff it with a Primus Fist, or just use it to control mana tiles, and just kind of get the ability. Your opponent's usually going to want to try to kill it pretty quickly, so it's not a huge deal that the body isn't the best. Ephemeral Shroud, we still need to have some kind of Dispel to beat some taunts, or to just beat minions that are going to cause problems otherwise. Losing the one damage and 1 health in a deck like this, where you're aggressive again, is worse than in a control deck where the body doesn't matter as much, but it's kind of the cost of doing business, so what can you do? Ooze is a 3-3, which is a big body for just 2 mana. Whenever it takes damage, you're going to turn some space in a random space occupied by your enemy into Shadow Creep. So it's actually going to get 2 Shadow Creeps a lot of the time, and it often ends up pinging one of your opponent's minions or general for 1 or 2 with the Darkspine Elemental. It's pretty effective. Just tossing around some damage and shadow creep. It's not something you can control because it's a battle pet, but we're an aggro deck, so most of the damage we throw out is going to be valuable. Primus Fist is just going to allow you to get the extra 2 damage in and trade up. We don't have the Wraithlings like we do in Lilith, so we don't have as many targets that make good use of this, but being able to use our small minions to do some damage or control the board is important, so this is something we're going to go for. Sojourner is a really good card draw now, I think, now that Zenrui isn't as popular, and now that some Songhai decks and Vanard decks are very strong, and you really don't want them drawing cards. When you see so many decks playing Spelljammer, it makes Spelljammer not as effective because the effect is symmetrical, so if they're happy with it when they play it, they're going to be similarly happy when you play it. So it's actually not a huge sacrifice to play Sojourner over it right now, I believe. Grincher actually had some good comments about this. I will try to find that post and link to it because he's been playing this instead of Spelljammer in some of his tempo decks. So this is just a card draw with these aggro decks with cheap cards. You need to keep filling your hand, so we end up playing this a lot, and I think it's actually in one of its better place in the meta than usual. Abyssal Juggernaut is really kind of the cornerstone of the deck. It's going to be tough to win a lot of times if you don't draw at least one of these and not have it dispelled. It's very vulnerable to dispel. Just revert to a 3/3. This plus your creep creators like Ooze, your Bloodborne spell, not sure actually, and your Abyssal Crawler, as well as your Sphere of Darkness, will make this very big most of the time. Shadow Nova buffs it +4/+4 on the turn, so you can kind of get a +4/+4 buff on your Abyssal Juggernaut, and ping for 1 at the end of the turn if they stand on top of it. Remember that you have to put it on tiles that aren't already affected to get the full +4/+4. If you put it on a tile that's already affected, you'll get the difference between the number of tiles 4 and the number of tiles affected that were already affected, so you won't get full value. I mean, sometimes that's the best place to place it, but you just have to be aware of that. And 1 Dark Transformation. This is something you could definitely take out. It's not overly important, but there are some problem minions that might be worth having a little bit more removal for than just the Shrouds and the Lures. So that's the deck, and I'll have a couple games.